पार्थमोदकं सदा विमुक्तिसाधकं कलाधरावतं सकं विलासिलोकरक्षकम्.
Hello children. So today we are going to start with the science chapter of your 9th standard, that is fundamental unit of life, that is chapter number 5. So see the word, the fundamental unit of life. So if a life has to be led, or if something has to be living, what is most important here? How the organisms or the animals, how they are living, how they are functioning, that we'll be studying in this particular chapter, that is fundamental unit of life. If you have to survive, what is most important here, that we'll be studying here. So discovery of the cell. So how people came to know that this is a living, this is non-living. There has to be something. So that's why it is given discovery of the cells. Okay, so here Robert Hooke in the year 1665, okay, he examined a slice of cork. So usually cork, it is something like this. You do find on the top of your as a cap for some of the bottles in olden days. Now also some of the glass bottles you do find these corks. Okay, so what he did, he just took a slice of this cork and he observed under primitive microscope. So when he observed under this particular microscope, he observed that this particular cork, it consists of small box like structures. You can see here the small box like structures here. Yes, you have small box like structures. Yes, so he called these boxes as cells. So he called these box like structures as cells there. So the substance called cork comes from the bark of tree. Now where does this cork come from? So this cork comes from the bark of the tree. So here cell, yes, it is a Latin word. Cell is what? A Latin word. It means little rooms. Cell means little rooms. So you are able to see small box like structures here. Yes, that's why Robert Hooke, he named them as what? Cell there. That means little rooms. Next, we are going to see what all discoveries, in which period, what they discovered. So from this year 1665, yes, so one or the other person started finding, that means in the field of science, yes, when they came to know the discovery of the cell, so then the journey begins there. So next, Levon Hooke in the year 1674, he found the presence of living cells in the pond water. So Robert Hooke, he took the cork material, he took a slide and he observed and he called them as cells there. But Levon Hooke in the year 1674, he found the presence of living cells in the pond water. So what he did, he just collected the pond water there. He collected the pond water and he observed under the microscope. So when he observed there, he was able to see some living cells. That means he was able to see some movement in the water. We can't see them through our naked eyes. That's why we are observing them under microscope. So he was able to see some things were moving randomly there. Okay, Robert Brown in year 1831 recognized the existence of a nucleus in the cell. Yes, so now one by one in this particular chapter we will study about all these things, nucleus and all other things. So but first we should know when they were discovered. So it was discovered by whom? Robert Brown in the year 1831. So he recognized the existence of nucleus in the cell. That means we call nucleus as the brain of the cell there. Then Purkinje in the year 1839 invented the protoplasm. Say protoplasm. Then we have Shawn and Schild in the year 1838 and 39, they presented the cell theory that all organisms are actually made up of cell. So Schwann and Schleiden, they came to conclusion that all the organisms, they are made up of cells there. Virchow in the year 1855 suggested that yes, cells comes from cells that already exist in nature. So a cell is there, it is already originated. A new cell comes from the original cell itself. That was discovered by, yes, in the year Virchow in 1855 there. Okay. Now, so cellular composition and different organisms. So how this cellular composition will be? Is it going to be same in all, or do we have any difference there? So now here on the basis of number of cells present in different organisms. So now depending on number of cells in an organism, they have been classified as unicellular and multicellular. They have been classified as unicellular and multicellular. When the word here we have as unicellular organism, it means it is having a single cell there. It is having a single cell. But when we say multicellular, multi means many. Many cells, we call it as multicellular. So you can see here, yes, the organisms, they are basically classified into two types, unicellular and multicellular. So in case of unicellular, we have amoeba, bacteria, paramecium, these are the example, whereas multicellular organisms, we have plants and animals there. Okay, we have plants. Multi means they have many cells. Here they have only single cell there. That's why they are called as unicellular. Yes. So major difference between unicellular and multicellular, they are having single cell, they have multiple cells there. There is no division of labor. That means you have a single cell only will be performing all the functions for its survival. But when it comes to multicellular organisms, yes, here the different functions, in case of multicellular, we have different functions, yes, multicellular body, so you have different functions there. So each set of cell will be performing a particular function there. Each set of cell will be performing a particular function. Even though all are in one and the same, the cells there, but their functions are going to be different in case of multicellular organisms. So next, are the shape of these all cells one and the same? Are they only same or in all the way? So some cells have fixed shape. This is very important. All the cells are not alike. They do differ in their shapes in some or the other way. So some cells have fixed shape, like your plant cell and animal cells. So they are fixed shape. Animal cells are fixed shape. While some cells like WBCs, that is white blood cells, and amoeba, they keep on changing their shape. So these are the two exceptions. That is, in case of animals, we have white blood cells. Yes, so they, and we have amoeba. They keep on changing their shapes there. They don't have a fixed shape as such. So fixed shape cells may be of various types. So you are able to see here, we have elliptical, that is in fat cells. Then we have spherical in case of ovum. Yes, we have the ovum cell here. Okay, then we do have a spindle shaped. Yes, so this is spindle shaped. In case of our muscles, we have knobbed thread, like in your sperm cells. Yes, then discoidal, that is your RBC. These all are set. See, one or the other. Each one is different from one another. Yes, each shape is different. But if when we say they are blood cells, you do find only blood cells of this type. You won't get anything of this sort there. When we say nerve cells, Yes, these are only called as nerve cells. Nerve cells means this is the fixed shape. They are not going to change into spindle shape or in the oval shape there. They are nerve cell means they are nerve cells. They do have a fixed shape now and they have a particular function to perform there. Then size of the cell. So size of the cell. The size of the cell varies significantly. So now we just saw the shapes. When we saw the shapes here, yes, you are able to see, yes, as the shape is different, their size also do vary there. Their size also do vary here. So size of the cells vary significantly from smallest cell of mycoplasma. So mycoplasma is a microorganism, yes, mycobacterium. So it is having size of 0.1 to 0.5 micrometers. 0.1 to 0.5 micrometers. You can't see with your naked eyes. You have to go observe under the microscope only. And to very large egg cell of ostrich. Yes, everyone is very much familiar with the ostrich bird there. So the ostrich bird egg cell size, not the egg size, egg cell size itself is 18 centimeters there. The longest cell of the human body are the nerve cells, which may reach up to length of 90 centimeter. So here just now you saw the nerve cell. Yes, the nerve cell. So it is having a length of how much? Yes, so it is having a length of 90 centimeters, a length of 90 centimeters, okay. Then we saw the shape, we saw the size. Now let us talk about the function. What is the function of the cell? Okay. So the shape and the size of the cells are related to the specific functions they perform. This is very important. As I just told you, the cells do have the particular shape and particular functions. Yes, the size and the shape, they are going to be different according to the functions that they are going to perform there. Multicellular organisms like human beings perform these functions by division of labor. So in case of multicellular organisms, you find all these cells. They do have the function. Okay, this cell is going to perform this so and so function there. The other set of cells will perform other kind of function. Yes. So division of labor is also seen within a single cell also. Sometimes we do find this division of labor in a single cells. Every cell possesses certain specific components known as cell organelles. So every cell possesses, that means each cell do has its very specific kind of components and we call them as cell organelles. We call them as cell organelles. These enable it to survive and perform specific functions. So when we say a cell is going to be living and it is performing the functions, how it is going to perform? It is going to perform with the help of these cell organelles because they help the cell to survive. If the cell has to survive, all these cell organelles has to function properly there. In a proper channel they have to work there. Cell organelles together along with the protoplasm constitute the basic unit of life called the cell. So cell organelles plus the protoplasm all together form your cell there. All together they form the cell. So as we just saw in the previous one, as Robert Hooke, he said cell, that means you have a small room. So inside these small rooms you have the cell organelles, some matrix, the protoplasm, everything you do have it. So when it has all these things, we call it as a cell there. We do call it as a cell there. Cell membrane. So moving on. So when we are talking about a cell, so let us see what cell membrane. That means you have a cell. Okay, so cell membrane means the outer covering here, the outer covering. So the outer covering, cell membrane, it is also called as what? Plasma membrane. It is also called as plasma membrane. It is just like an envelope. Yes, whenever you want to post something, you will open an envelope and you will keep your letter inside. The same way is your cell membrane, or also called as plasma membrane. So if you open it, you get the content. In the same way, for a cell, this plasma membrane is what? The outer covering for your whole cell there. Therefore, a cell gets separated from the external environment because of its plasma membrane. So this plasma membrane, it what? Separates the cell from the external surrounding environment. The plasma membrane has capability to decide which material should enter or leave the cell and which should not. This is very important. Okay, so this plasma membrane decides whether this particular material has to enter the cell or it has to exit. Whether it has to enter or exit the cell, it is decided by. That means if you want to get inside a class, you ask the permission. The same way here, your plasma membrane plays an important role whether that particular material should be given the permission to enter the cell, or if any of the content has to move out from the cell, whether they should be given permission or not. So you are able to see, that's why it is called as selectively permeable membrane. Selectively permeable, that means it allows only certain materials to pass through it. It allows only certain materials to pass through it. So this is the microscopic picture here. So this is your what? Cell membrane. So it is made up of, we'll come to that one in next. Yes, we call it as the fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane. It is called as fluid mosaic model, whatever you just saw there now. So the fluid mosaic model explains the structure of your plasma membrane. It explains what? The complete structure of your plasma membrane. So according to it, the plasma membrane comprises of 3 components. So your plasma membrane, it comprises of 3 main components. Those are lipids, proteins and your carbohydrates. Lipids, proteins and carbohydrates are the major components in case of your plasma membrane. So these components can flow freely and fluidly inside the plasma membrane. So these components, they can move freely in the plasma membrane without any interruption. So there are 2 types of lipids. Okay, when we are talking the 3 main components, in that the first one that is we are going to talk is lipids. Again in the lipids there are 2 types in case of your plasma membrane. First one is phospholipids. First one is called as what? Phospholipids. It is a lipid made up of glycerol. So this phospholipid, it is made up of glycerol, 2 fatty acids and phosphates. It is made up of phospholipids. They are made up of what? They have a glycerol and again you have 2 fatty acids and a phosphate there. You do have a phosphate there. It creates a semi-permeable membrane. So this phospholipid, they are going to create a semi-permeable. Semi means half or selective. Permeable means moving in and out. I mean, if you have a membrane, is a sheet. So which all components have to be passed through it? That's why only selective, that's why semi-permeable membrane, which allows a flow of only certain material inside outside the cell. Inside outside the cell there. Next we have cholesterol. So it is lipid which provides fluidity to the surface of your plasma membrane. So cholesterol, what does it do? It provides fluidity to your plasma membrane. So you can see here, yes, we have glycoproteins, glycolipids, and here down we have cholesterol here. Yes, we do have, yes, the cholesterol molecules also here. The cholesterol molecules. The proteins act as receptors of the cell. So proteins, now we have said lipids done. Lipids is over. Next we have proteins, not over, we have just discussed, but in cholesterol only we are discussing more. We come across next set major component, that is proteins here. So the proteins act as receptors of the cell and help the transportation across the cell membrane. So what happens when some of the substances, they can move very easily inside your cell, but in some cases these proteins, they are going to act as the receptors. Okay, they are going to act as the receptors here. Yes, we have the glycoproteins here that we can see here. So what happens if a material has to get inside, what it does is it attaches to them, or it is going to pass through this protein channels there. They are going to pass through this protein channels there such. The carbohydrates attach themselves with the lipids and proteins and are found extracellular side of the membrane. So carbohydrates, yes, majorly you do have, yes, so you are able to see these all are lipids. These all are what? Lipids, and these are your proteins here. We have the proteins, and these are all lipids and these are proteins. So your carbohydrates, they attach themselves to these proteins or to your lipids here as such. That's why they are given glycoproteins. Glyco means protein with carbohydrate attached. Glycolipid means lipid with carbohydrate attached. So these are all the attachment that we are having of carbohydrates there. Yes. So next, gaseous exchange between cells and external environment. So now we said only materials will be getting inside. Now do only the solid materials enter? No, we do have some gases also which help in exchanging with the cells there. So movement of oxygen and carbon dioxide from the cell is carried out by means of diffusion. So oxygen and your carbon dioxide, they are moving in and out by a particular process called as diffusion. Gaseous substances have a tendency to move to areas where the concentration is less from the areas where there is higher. That means these gaseous substances, they have this tendency to move from a higher concentration to a lower concentration there. So this movement is defined as the process of diffusion. So as I said, the carbon dioxide and your oxygen, they are going to move inside and out of a cell with the help of diffusion. So diffusion means the movement. Okay, so it is movement of your gases from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. Diffusion can take place of solid, liquid and gases. So now this diffusion process only takes place by the gases? No, it will be taking place by the solids also, by the liquids or even the gases there. So movement of water between the cells. So now we just saw here how the movement of gases takes place between the cell and the cell environment. Now let us talk about the water, the movement of water between the cell and the external environment. It is carried out by the means of osmosis. So gaseous exchange takes place by the help of diffusion, whereas the liquid movement, that is water movement, it takes by the means of osmosis. Now the question comes, what is osmosis? So osmosis is a process in which water moves from the region of higher concentration to one where its concentration is low through a semi-permeable membrane. Osmosis, it is almost like your diffusion, but the major thing is, in case of diffusion, you don't have a semi-permeable membrane as such. But when it comes to osmosis, here also there is a movement, okay, from higher region, from higher concentration to lower concentration only, but through a semi-permeable membrane. That means a membrane which allows selective materials to pass through it. Therefore, we can say that osmosis is just a special case of the process of diffusion. So, it is nothing but the diffusion, but a special case where we are including the semi-permeable membrane. We are including the semi-permeable membrane here. So, now in case of this osmosis only, we have three sections. What are they? First one is hypotonic solution. So, if the concentration of water outside the cell is higher than the concentration of water inside the cell, okay, inside the cell gains water by the process of osmosis. So, as I said, in osmosis we have three things. Three main processes that we need to observe here. The first one is hypotonic. So now you are able to see, this is a beaker, a cell is being kept, okay, a red blood cell, you can take it, or you can take a potato also, fine. So now what has happened, here the water concentration is what? Yes, higher concentration than that of water inside the cell. So if the concentration of water outside the cell is higher than the concentration of water inside the cell gains the water by the process of osmosis. So, water can move into the cell from the cell membrane. So, in case of your hypotonic solution, that means here you have water. Yes, you do have water. Now inside this also you do have the water, but here what happens, the water contained, yes, amount of water enters the cell which results in swelling they are selling. That means when the concentration of water is inside this particular cell is less and outside is more, okay, that means according to your osmosis process, the movement of liquid takes from higher concentration to the lower concentration. That means the water which is outside, it is going to enter into this cell, and as a result you will be able to see the swelling. So in this case, this kind of osmosis, we call it as, the solution of such kind is called as hypotonic solution. That is called as hypotonic solution. So next we have, yes, isotonic solution. Hypotonic means there is concentration of water higher outside the cell environment compared to the inside. In a solution where concentration is more than the inside of the cell, it is called that sort of solution is called as hypotonic solution. When it comes to your isotonic solution, so if the cells are put in an environment which has a similar concentration of water as present inside. That means you have put your blood cells in a beaker where the concentration of water is equal to the concentration of water present inside the cell. Yes. So this state allows for the free movement of water across the membrane without changing the concentration of solutes on either side. That means here also there will be exchange, but once the concentration is one in the same, yes, as the concentration will be one in the same, they without changing the concentration, the solutes, what all the solute substances are there, they will be moving inside and outside the cell there. Therefore, the size of the cell does not vary. So when the concentration outside and inside is one in the same, there will be no swelling of your cell. So such kind of solution, it is because of isotonic solutions, there is no net movement of water. That means when the concentration is equal, nothing going inside, the water is not going inside either or outside there. So such thing is called as what? Isotonic solution. So moving on to the next one, that is hypertonic solution. Hypertonic solution. In this case, what happens? Outside environment, there is less concentration of water compared to the inside. So as a result, in case of osmosis, the water moves from higher concentration to the lower concentration there. So therefore, the water which is present inside the cell, it moves outside there. Yes, it moves outside. As a result, the cell will be shrinking. That means when you keep your cell in a solution where the outside concentration is more compared to the inside, there will be shrinkage in case of your what? Cells there. So such kind is called as hypertonic solution. That is called as what? Hypertonic solution. So till now we have studied the cell, discovery of the cell, yes, then shape, size, all these things we have studied, and then we have discussed in detail about your plasma membrane. So in the next class we will see the next of these.